Howdy folks, Jamboriki here, and today I went to go and see Sony Animation's newest animated feature, The Emoji Movie. This is a film set inside a smartphone and centers on a malfunctioned emoji called Gene who doesn't have a fixed emotion. So he teams up with a high five and a hacker called Jailbreak to find a way to make him become a permanent emotion. Now this film has been destroyed by critics. Absolutely annihilated. And I can see where they're coming from, to be honest. I get why they're angry. I completely understand, because this movie is so shameful. It really is disgusting how far it goes to pander to corporations to help them to get their products to be shoved into audiences' faces while they're at the cinema. You see, our character's quest has them going through all these different phone apps, and the worlds they visit are clearly just commercials for existing apps and games and companies, stuff like that. There's nothing imaginative about these worlds. They're just loud, obnoxious, colourful settings there to represent different kinds of existing products so that audiences will want to buy them after seeing the film. And to be honest, I just didn't care. I think that's the biggest problem with this movie. It didn't make me care. I wasn't invested. For example, I don't care what Gene is going through. He wants to become a permanent meh emoji so that he can do his job in this community, but I'm not fussed. We don't really get to know this character. All we know is that he's a meh and he wants to be a good meh. And that's it, really. There's nothing really to him. We just jump straight into his predicament. We don't get to know him before he goes for this situation. So I don't care about his character arc. I don't care if he ends up becoming a permanent meh emoji. I don't care if he chooses not to. Whatever. And High Five, who is an obnoxious character, really is a very annoying character. He's loud, rude, gets in the way. There's nothing charming about him, and he has a terrifying design. I don't exactly look at a character that's basically a giant human hand with a smiley face and think, ah. I think, ah. It doesn't help that High Five's only motive is to become a favourite emoji, a really selfish ambition that makes him insufferable as a character. I don't care if he becomes a favourite emoji. He doesn't convince the audience that he warrants this kind of position because he's so rude, obnoxious and unlikable. Yes, later on he says that he changes his motive, but there's a difference between saying you've changed and actually showing you've changed. It's a very last-minute character development. I don't believe that High Five has matured as a character by the end. And Jailbreak, well, she had potential as a character. You see, she was born as a princess emoji, but she noticed there wasn't really many choices for female emojis. There wasn't really much variety or flagrancy, but there's lots of interesting, diverse kinds of male emojis, and she wants to break the mold. That's an interesting, gender-progressive kind of character. But the movie cops out and just makes her another love interest. And the romance she develops with Gene is so forced, because you can tell the movie feels obligated. It knows that there's so many successful films out there that have romantic subplots and think if they just put that in their movie, it'll be a hit. But it doesn't work like that. You've got to mean it. And the Emoji Movie doesn't really feel that sincere when it comes to the romance between Gene and Jailbreak. I don't feel anything between them. Their romance doesn't feel naturally implemented into the film. It doesn't have anything organic about it, because as soon as you see these two characters together, you know that the film is in this feeling of, well, we have to do this, not we want to do this. And because all these emoji characters have fixed emotions, it's hard to connect with them. They either come across as creepy or boring because they can't really express any other emotion except for one. And this really injures Gene's parents, who are mehs, so they stay mehs. And it can be really cringy having to sit through their scenes, because the joke is they're stuck with one emotion and they're talking in a way that requires emotion. It's just one flat joke all the way through. That's another problem with this movie. It's not funny. I've seen bad comedies that at least made me have a guilty laugh or a little smirk, but this one, nothing. Got nothing out of me. And the thing is, there are quite a few gags that had the potential to be funny, but they fall flat in execution. Not to mention, this movie has nothing original or refreshing to offer. I was constantly distracted by the movie's concepts and ideas because they reminded me so much of other successful movies. It's clear that Sony Animation weren't thinking with their hearts but their wallets. They saw which animated films were box office hits and thought, how can we copy those ideas? Maybe that's not true, but it's hard to convince me otherwise because there's quite a few examples. First of all, this is a movie that centres on sentient emotions, and sometimes we cut to a human teenage boy who owns the smartphone that they live in, which is clearly an attempt to replicate the Inside Out formula, but the film doesn't really understand what made audiences connect with Inside Out because we don't get to know this teenage boy. His name's Alex, that's all I really know about him. He's a generic teenage boy who is crushing on a girl. And the movie expects us to care about him getting with this girl, but I honestly did not give a shit. And the whole idea of a sentient digital character wanting to fit in with his community by going on a mission to become much more like those around him is clearly an idea lifted from Wreck-It Ralph. Because the film feels so similar to other movies, it lacks any kind of identity. It's not being its own thing. It's trying to be other movies. The movie also tries to give itself some substance by having a message about being yourself, but it doesn't really explore that message. It doesn't really go into detail why it's good to be yourself. What are the benefits? Why is it important to be yourself in society? It's got nothing bold or profound to say. It just takes this generic statement and runs with it. It feels as if that, well, okay, let's just have a message for the sake of having a message. And you can tell that it's not very sincere about it. Now, I know some people watching this video are going to play the card, it's a kids movie, it doesn't matter how bad it is. You do know that sounds really awful. I don't think that's a healthy way of going about children's filmmaking. You're basically saying to kids, you're stupid, we're going to lower the bar for you. Adult filmmakers have a responsibility when they're making a movie for young audiences. They're in a position where they can help kids to enrich their minds, to grow their brains, to help them better understand the world. So I don't believe the whole "it's a kids movie" excuse is a good defense for a bad children's movie. Far from it. And here's the thing, at the Emoji Movie screening that I attended, none of the kids were laughing. To conclude, this movie has nothing to offer. It's got no sincerity, no passion, no imagination. It's pretty much a waste of time. It's very bland, very boring. I'm gonna forget about it very soon. It doesn't have much of an impact. It's not timeless. It's rubbish. I've been Jamboriki, and I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, then feel free to support me on my Patreon. Cheerio, folks.